Hey, what's up? It's me, Lex. Today we're back with another entry in the class overviews. Today I have one of my personal favorites for various versatility, picking up with other classes, but even as a main class, it has a lot of things that it excels at. Champion. Champion's a frontline defender. You're going to be engaging almost exclusively in melee combat and kind of being like a tough frontliner. You have access to a unique champion's reaction depending on your cause. The they're separated into good and evil causes, more or less. The good causes let you defend your allies and do some bonuses, whereas the evil causes let you sometimes defend yourself or mostly damage enemies when they attack you. We'll go over that once we get to Unbearable Scoundrel, which is our third build. As far as Champion's basic abilities goes, you get training in simple and martial weapons, all armor. You get access to a focus spell depending on which cause you pick, and you have accelerated proficiency in your armor, which gives you a very solid armor class across the entirety of the game. For our first build here, Moral Backbone. This is kind of like an intelligence-focused, like knowledge character. This is going to be our Liberator cause champion. Liberators are about defending freedom, opposing things like slavery and tyranny and people that impose their will on others, etc. With Moral Backbone here, we're spending both of our general feats at level 1 to pick up some additional lores. Make sure that these are fitting or relevant to your campaign, obviously. If you're doing something like Stolen Fates, where you're traveling all around, additional lores might not be as useful because you won't be able to apply them all the time. But say you're playing something like Abomination Vaults, you could grab lore for the Gauntlet and lore for Otari and very reliably cover a lot of information. Stuff like that is what I'm talking about here. We also pick up the Unimpeded Step class feat at level 1, which makes it so that our Liberating Step reaction allows our allies to step into all sorts of difficult terrain and uneven ground. So it basically lets them bypass all sorts of restrictions on what they can and can't do. Speaking of the Liberating Step, that's the champion reaction that Moral Backbone has here. When an enemy within 15 feet of you attacks an ally within 15 feet of you, and then either damages, grabs, or grapples them, you can prevent some of the damage equal to 2 plus your level. This is a lot of damage reduction, and it's resistance to all damage, which means that if, say, something is doing 10 fire and 10 bludgeoning damage, it'll resist 2 plus your level of both of those instances of 10. It has a lot of potential to completely remove damage if enemies are relying on split damage. Additionally, the ally gets to attempt to escape the effect that is keeping them from moving, either making a new save or using the escape action. And then, if they're able to move, they can also step as a free action. There's a lot of things here. It eats up a lot of actions from your enemies. It keeps your teammates quite safe, with some of the more dangerous effects in the game being things like grappling and restraining and paralyzation, etc. And so this can ensure simultaneously that your allies are not being restricted in what they're capable of while depriving the enemy of actions. It's a very, very strong cause. Additionally, all of the good aligned champions get the Lay on Hands focus spell, which lets you just touch a person next to you or yourself to get a little bit of health. And if it's an ally, they also get an AC bonus. It's quite good. You can even use it against undead creatures to attempt to harm them, but generally healing is going to be very solid. this lets you kind of supplement as well out of combat healing at lower levels, taking a 10-minute break to recharge your focus spell, and then laying on your hands to heal them is very, very effective at ensuring that everyone's at full HP between encounters. Moving on to level 2, Moral Backbone here, because they have that investment into intelligence. They also pick up the Wizard Dedication, which gives them just a couple of cantrips, but that can still be very effective. Specifically, we pick up Electric Arc, which allows you to not only take advantage of some range, but it also gives you the ability to hit multiple targets at once. If you're, say, standing next to someone and you don't have the ability to raise your shield, maybe you strike at them once and then you Electric Arc between them and another enemy, shock them both. Some of the great things about saves and non-attack spells is that if you're striking, you are not going to suffer your multiple attack penalty on those follow-ups. So having cantrips can just generally be good. We also have shield here, and so this is notable because, of course, if you're wielding a shield, as Moral Backbone is here, why would you want the shield spell, right? It does, it's less effective at increasing your armor class. But the reason that it's here is because the shield's shield block ability is actually quite strong. It scales as you level, since it's a cantrip, automatically, and it starts out with hardness of 5, and then every 2 spell ranks it increases by another 5. So once you get to level 5 you're going to be able to block 10 damage with the shield block from this, and this will allow you to, even if your shield is destroyed, or maybe before you even use your shield, you can use the spell to absorb more damage. It just gives you this bigger pool of damage that you can soak in and absorb, which is very good as a frontline fighter. Moving on further down, you could pick up more wizard stuff or more champion stuff to kind of focus into one or the other. As well, champions are very tied to the deity that you select. So here for Moral Backbone, I chose the Lost Prince. It is a deity from it's an eldest deity, which was kind of like before the first world. Well, they were created in the first world and serve now as deities of the first world, since the gods have abandoned that plane. The Lost Prince here is the eldest of loneliness, sadness, and forgotten things, and you add on to your edicts of good from your champion that you must aid the depressed, wear somber clothing, maintain neutrality, and ruminate on the past. So Moral Backbone here has a lot to think about. Moving on to our level 5 champion, we have Punitive Protector. This is a very fun one. Punitive Protector is a sort of a mean defender. They're going to get up onto the front line, and they're going to ensure that their allies don't get hurt by making themselves the biggest problem. And so to kind of build into this and take advantage of that, at level 1 we're going to be picking up Fleet to kind of offset the speed penalty we're getting from our heavy armor. Unconventional weaponry for the gnomish flick mace. This used to be a very, very strong option before the errata, maybe like a year or so ago, where you would critically hit and automatically knock a foe prone. And so there's kind of this whole kind of a cult of personality around the flick mace. Nowadays it's in a much better space as far as just a fun option you can take. Here it's been taken because our deity, Daikitsu, the Chun deity of agriculture and craftsmanship, who allows you to sanctify as holy, which is fitting with our paladin cause, uses flails, so it just felt like a particularly fitting weapon to take, and especially because we can pick up kind of the idea here that Punitive Protector was raised in like a gnomish community on Tiansha and has since moved to the Inner Sea region and picked up Taldane to attempt to, make the world a better place. We also pick up Desperate Prayer because I did want to show off, despite the general lack of options at level 1 for if you're only going with common options for champions, there are still some decent ones here. Deities Domain gets you a focus spell. Ranged Reprisal lets you Retributive Strike with ranged weapons, and also step to make attacks with your Retributive Strike if they're not in reach already. Speaking of, we'll get into that. The Paladin Cause gives you the Retributive Strike reaction, where if an enemy damages your ally and both are within 15 feet of you, your ally gains resistance against the damage, equal to 2 plus your level again, and you can make a strike against the enemy. So this kind of lets you keep up the pressure repeatedly against enemies. If they keep ignoring you, you keep hitting them. At level 2, we're going to be picking up the Dual Weapon Warrior dedication, which allows us to use these 2 flick maces whenever we have the actions to spare to use Double Slice, making 2 strikes at the same multiple attack penalty. Although, since the flick mace does not have the agile traits, the second attack is still going to be made at a -2 penalty. We also pick up a Pilgrim's Token, carrying a religious token, reminding us of Daikitsu around, allows us to go first when we tie an initiative with an enemy. At level 3, we pick up Continual Recovery, and we select our Divine Ally. The champion at level 3 gets to select Blade, Shield, or Steed, and they either buff up their weapon or shield, or they get a mount. Here we choose Blade, and we get really your choice between what's most fitting of Disrupting or Ghost Touch. But you gain the effects of a property rune on your weapon. At level 4, we pick up Aura of Courage, which means that when you become frightened, you become frightened 1 less. This is a basic fighter ability, Bravery. It's genuinely an incredibly strong effect. Being able to ignore an entire point of frightened means that a lot of things that would be devastating for other characters are less so or not entirely for you. Additionally, at the end of your turn, when you reduce your frightened condition, you also reduce it by 1 for all allies within 15 feet. This lets you, kind of just by your presence, ensure that your party is all functioning at high ability. And if you end up encountering a creature with something like a frightful presence, you and your party can stay back, maybe casting some buffs or preparing, and your aura is going to mean that you're contributing as well. We also pick up Ward Medic between these 2. Punitive Protector is now a very capable medic, and is able to very quickly treat the entire party if they get into a bad scuffle. At level 5, we're also going to be picking up Sense Allies, just so that you can tell where your allies are, since they're kind of very focused on protecting the people that they're around, but they're also getting caught up in the action on the front line. Being able to tell where your friends are is very helpful. As far as their weapons, as said before, they have the Gnome Flick Mace. It's a reach flail with d6 damage dice. They have full plate, and since we had a bit more gold to work with for our equipment, we got a healer's toolkit, some doubling rings to make the runes cheaper between the flick maces, and an adventuring kit, as we always try to have. And you even have 77 left over for various skill items or runes things to bolster up your party members, alchemical items, etc. Our final champion is Unbearable Scoundrel. Kind of a funny name, but Unbearable Scoundrel here is the one and only kind of evil champion that I'm going to showcase. The evil champions have a lot of difficulty, at least before the release of Player Core 2, after which I'm likely going to have to remake this video. Because the tenets of evil and the tenets of many of the deities that can sanctify as unholy are very difficult to play around in a party, and especially even the causes. So, like, just for example here, the tenets of evil are that you must not put another's needs before your own or those of your deity, and you cannot commit an altruistic act like giving something away in charity. Additionally, on the Desecrator cause itself, which is the one we're selecting here, you have to subvert or corrupt everything in your path that is pure or holy, sow doubt among those holding ideals of purity or holiness. As you can see, it would be very difficult to fit that into a normal party. If you're really attached to the mechanics, I recommend talking to your game master about finding a more fitting way to implement these causes, because I do think that they're very interesting and engaging concepts, though they do have a secondary problem as well, which I'll get into after I conclude this section here. But for example, what I tend to do with the evil champions is I focus more on the deities, anathema, and edicts. So for example, the Lantern King here is another eldest from the first world, whose edicts are to play pranks, seek new jokes, and leave lit lanterns in unusual places. And your anathema is to be completely honest, ruin or explain a good joke. And so, as you can see with the name here, Unbearable Scoundrel, the concept is that this character is very caught up. Maybe they have something in their history that they don't want to talk about or they want to ignore. And so they're never honest with anyone, and they're playing pranks all the time, and they end up playing some pranks that maybe upset people and push them away. You know, one of the standard writing tropes. And this would fit into a party, and they could slowly open up and maybe even switch over to a new cause, or just use the cause that they have as their abilities but have changed as a person. It all depends on the game master you're running with, how strict they are with these rules, what kind of story you all want to tell. The secondary issue that the evil champions have is that the champions' basic class features are kind of built in a way that focuses extremely hard around your champion's reaction, and specifically it forcing enemies to attack you. You as a character are not particularly desirable as a target for an enemy, because champions don't have many ways to increase their damage output or increase their combat utility or versatility. They're built kind of as these tanky hunks of metal and meat that stand next to their allies and absorb a lot of damage. And then enemies see that and they go, oh, I tried to hit the wizard and I only did 4 damage because of this guy. So I'm going to hit this guy until he stops blocking all of my strikes. Whereas the evil champion reactions, we'll just go into this one here, Selfish Shield for the Desecrator. If an enemy within 15 feet damages you, you gain resistance equal to 2 plus half your level, and strikes against the triggering creature deal a single extra damage until the end of your next turn. And that increases to 2 at 9th level and 3 at 16th level. The other causes have similar things, like the anti-paladin cause has Destructive Vengeance. Same thing, if you take damage, take more damage, but they also take the more damage that you take. And it's this weird kind of push and pull with what the base of the class wants to do, where enemies don't really want to attack you because you have a higher armor class and you're not doing a lot of damage. But these reactions on the evil champions rely on them attacking you. So, anyway, with all that said and done, put out of the way, Unbearable Scoundrel is a very fun build. We pick up the Fleet feat to, again, offset the slowness that we're getting from our heavier armor. Unconventional weaponry to gain access to the Gill Hook. This is a two-handed reach weapon with the grapple trait. And I'll get into the Gill Hook and Scythe in a moment. And then we pick up Deities Domain. This Unbearable Scoundrel worships the Lantern King, which, again, has the Delirium Domain and is kind of a silly prankster, perhaps a little bit malicious in pranks from time to time. The Delirium Domain gives us access to a focus spell, Hyper Focus, where we can target creatures scaling as we level up within 30 feet of us. They need to make a will save, and then it gives them bonuses to a lot of their senses, but they can't perceive anything beyond a range of 20 feet with any of their senses. This lasts for a round on a success, a minute on a failure, and a minute, but the range is only 10 feet instead of 20 on a critical failure. So the idea here is that you cast hyper focus on the enemies, and then they're unable to see what's going on the battlefield. They're maybe wandering around, they wander into you, and you just absolutely beat them up. Specifically, though, this is going to combo with, we're going to be attempting to lock down creatures, and then our allies staying out of that 20-foot range are going to be able to, say, shoot arrows from the rogue or some spells from the wizard. And because they're outside of that 20-foot range, the enemy doesn't know they're there, which means that they're off guard to them, which is quite effective. Simultaneously, it's protecting your allies, which kind of doubles down onto the core of the champion class, while being more offensive. That's a very solid pick from the domain. The only issue here is that you are going to be struggling with your action economy and really hoping for that failure effect, because a single round is not going to cut it as far as being able to maintain a front line using this spell. But moving forward to level 2, to kind of push further into this idea that we want to deal damage and be proactive and attract more attention as ourselves on our own merits, we're going to be picking up the Barbarian Dedication. The Barbarian Dedication gives you access to Rage, which lets you spend an action to do some extra damage with your attacks, but you take a penalty to armor class, and you can't use concentrate actions. This is going to kind of stack with the fact that we have a higher armor class already, and then as well the fact that we have the Selfish Shield will more than balance out the -1 to armor class that this is going to be giving us. And this will bump up our damage so that enemies are more inclined to attack us. We'll be getting a flat +8 at level 7 here. We're going to be going with the Decay Instinct because it seemed quite fun, kind of like representing what's eating you from the inside. Unbearable Scoundrel here. Having quite a rough life. Titan Wrestler as well, because we're going to be relying on athletics maneuvers, trip and grapple to maintain the attention of enemies. At level 3, we're going to be grabbing the Toughness feats and Divine Ally for Blade again. This time we're going to be choosing the Shifting rune. We didn't go with that with the dual wielding because we already had access to the weapons specifically that we wanted, but here with a two-handed weapon, that being the Gill Hook, being able to spend a single action shifting it into a different two-handed weapon gives us a lot of versatility. We can do more damage with a greatsword, or what I've put down here, you can turn it into a scythe to gain the trip trait with your weapon, which allows you to trip enemies, adding the modifier from your weapon, your potency rune. And so this will allow you to lock down enemies very, very well. Trip is a very powerful athletics maneuver. Grapple is as well, but trip specifically for this build you'll see at level 6. But here at level 4 we're going to be picking up Basic Fury for the Shake It Off Barbarian feat. This is just a generally very strong feat. It allows you to reduce your frightened condition by 1 and attempt a fort save against sickened as the same action, and your sickened removal is basically a tier of success better. Even on a failure you lower the condition by 1, on a success you go by 2, and on a critical success by 3. So this means that basically nothing they hit you with, being a frontliner, is going to stick. You also pick up Battle Medicine, just in case you need to be able to treat yourself or your allies' wounds. At level 5, we're going to be picking up Incredible Initiative because we have the Hyper-Focus spell here. We really want to be going first and setting this up and getting ourselves out in front of our allies so that enemies aren't attacking them. At level 6, we're picking up Attack of Opportunity. Specifically with builds like this, Attack of Opportunity is incredible. It's a very, very incredible feat already. But with something like this, where as a champion, you can be locking down enemies with athletics maneuvers like tripping. You spend your turn tripping and maybe making an attack at multiple attack penalty. But then on their turn, when they go to stand up, you get to hit them. And you still get your multiple attack penalty-less attack every round. So you can still be outputting damage, and it pulls the threat towards you. Although, until higher levels, once you start getting additional reactions, this is going to be cutting you off from your selfish shield. So it kind of, it gives you a little bit of balance. Specifically as well, though, with something like the Gill Hook having your reach, this would allow you to, if you haven't been able to lock an enemy down yet, and they try to run past you to go attack the people that you're trying to protect, you can hit them as they go, and it's going to really show them that you're a solid threat, that they can't just ignore. Intimidating Glare is going to be giving our scary guy the ability to use Intimidation. And then at level 7, we're just going to be grabbing Wall Jump because it's a very fun feat. You can jump, and if you're adjacent to a wall at the end of the jump, then you can jump again without falling, so you can cross larger gaps. As far as the equipment goes, we already have the Gill Hook that we can change into various things. We put a wounding rune on it, so whenever we hit something, it starts bleeding. We just picked up some magical full plate and healer's toolkit and healer's gloves for more sustain. You need a lot of healing if you're going to be on the front line, plus an adventurer's kit. That stretched our budget just about all the way on its own. Finally, it has to be said that Champion is going to be getting a revision in Player Core 2, which comes out, I believe, in August. So any and or all of this might be outdated by then, and if it is, I'm going to have to remake this. But as is, this is where Champion stands. There's still a very incredibly fun class to play and to run for. Something that I'm not going to demonstrate a build for, but that is incredibly, incredibly strong. Champion has one of the strongest dedication feats in the game. At level 2, if you have a strength modifier of +2 and a charisma modifier of +2, you can pick it up to get training in all armor. And at level 6, you can spend a second feat to pick up the basic champion reaction. So just this. At level 9, a main class champion gets their divine smites, and they get Exalt at level 11, things like this that really separate them, but the basic reactions, you can pick those up with a level 6 feat. That's particularly effective with the Paladin cause, Retributive Strike, getting the ability to make a strike off of your turn to punish an enemy for hitting someone other than you, as, say, a barbarian, is incredibly, incredibly strong. Very worth it. It's something that you have to balance around, even it's that strong. But it is also very fun. It leans onto kind of this concept for a character very, very well. That makes it a fun option to have available. I'm looking forward to seeing what Paizo does with Champion and Player Core 2. And I hope you learned something. See you next time.